Hello, welcome back to my video. Today I'm going to read chapter 38 and maybe also chapter 39. Chapter 38, Dummies. Jeff realized that none of the old folk in the living room were moving of their own accord. The brownie nurses of Twilight Towers were actually manipulating them. And I saw ventriloquist might a dummy. One old man with a hearing aid that whistled loudly seemed to be clapping along to the music. But when you look again, you realize that Nurse Rose was holding hands in hers. An old lady appeared to be bobbing her head alone. Look again, and it was being moved in time by Nurse Blossom. A third elderly inmate with a ruddy nose and a monocle gave the impression he was a champion ballroom dancer. The short man was whisking a tall nurse around the living room as it were a dance floor. Or was he? On a closer inspection, it was the Nurse Violet who was leading. She was holding up the little man. His lips scraped the ground, his eyes were closed, and he was snoring loudly. As well as the Bunting family, there were quite a few other visitors to the Twilight Towers that afternoon. This was only the 15 minutes of the week that anyone could come and go. Among them, an old man wearing milk bottles and glasses looked like he was visiting his wife. The woman was tiny, little like a bird. The woman was tiny like a little bird. The pair were playing draughts together, so in reality one of the beefiest nurses, Nurse Tulip, had stuck her arms through the old lady's cardigan sleeves and was moving the pieces of her behalf. The giveaway to Jack was that the little lady now had this massive hairy head. Grandpa's. Meanwhile, a couple of toddlers sat with a rather round old lady who must have been their grandmother. The children's mother looked completely disinterested and sat there flicking through a dog-eared magazine. The old lady appeared to be patting the children's heads, but Jack spotted a piece of fishing wire attached to her hands. His eyes followed the fishing wire, which glinted a little in the light. It stretched across the room, ending behind a curtain. Hiding there was another nurse Hykent with a fishing rod. As the nurses twitched the rod up and down, some of the old lady's hand. "This is wicked," said Jack. No doubt Miss Swine put on this absurd show every Sunday afternoon at Twilight Towers just for the visitors. It might have fooled most people, but not Jack. Mrs. Swine, where's my grandpa? The boy demanded. What have you done to him? Matron simply smiled at the boy. As soon as you arrived, I sent for your grandfather. I believe he will be joining us here at the party any second now. Right on cue, the door on the living room swung open. Grandpa was in an ancient wooden wheelchair, being pushed by Nurse Daisy. She of the gold tooth and tattoo of a skull on her arm. The old man appeared to be fast asleep. Oh no, said Jack. They must have force-fed him the sleeping pills after all. As Nurse Daisy pushed Grandpa into position in front of the flickering television, Jack rushed over to him. Knowing of their special bond, Mom and Dad held back for a moment. The boy grasped the old man's hand tight. What have they done to you? He asked aloud, not expecting a response. Suddenly, Grandpa opened one of his eyes. It rolled all around to focus on his grandson. Ah, there you are, squadron leader, whispered the old man. Come under cover, have you? With slight hesitation, the boy nodded. Yes, Wing Commander. Jolly good show. I must say those Smarties worked a treat. With that, the old man winked, and his grandson couldn't help but smile. Grandpa had fooled them all. Then the old man looked around the room before saying, So, squadron leader, how do you fancy stepping outside to do some gardening? Jack understood exactly what this meant and winked back. Chapter 39 Bunkers. Miss Swine watched like a hawk as Grandpa and Jack disappeared out of the living room together. As families were visiting Twilight Towers that day, the front door was unlocked, so the pair went out and made their way across the garden. Jack's mother and father stayed inside in the warm living room and watched them from the window. As soon as they were a safe distance from the main building, Grandpa slipped Jack a couple of socks filled with dirt. He was instructed to slip down his trousers, one for each leg. As soon as they had reached the rather pitiful flower bed, which was really nothing more than a patch of earth with a couple of flower bulbs sticking out, the boy took his grandfather's lead, waddling like a pair of penguins. First Grandpa and then Jack pulled on the elastic bands. Tipping the soil socks up and released the dirt. It trickled down their legs and out of the bottom of their trousers. After checking the nurses high up on the observation tower where they were looking, they patted the dirt into the soil of the flower bed with their feet. What was all the soil from last night? Was this all the soil from last night, Wing Commander? Asked the boy. Roger, squadron leader, replied Grandpa proudly. Jack looked down at the tiny amount of dirt. Oh, it's very little like this. It couldn't have been more than a few cans worth. At this rate, the tunnel won't be completed until year 2083. The thing is, The boy started a sentence, but couldn't quite finish it for the fear of hurting the old man's feelings. Spit it out, man, demanded Grandpa. Well, the thing is, I worry that the tunnel is going to take forever if that's all the dirt you can get out in one night. The old man looked at the boy with disdain. Have you ever tried to dig through a stone floor armed with only a spoon? This answer required no real thought. Like most people on Earth, Jack had never been foolish enough to attempt such a task. No. Well, I don't mind telling you, it's ruddy hard going, exclaimed Grandpa. So how can I help you with the escape plan, sir? The old man thought for a moment. Smuggle me in a bigger spoon? With respect, Wing Commander, I don't think the size of the spoon is going to make that much difference. I'll try anything to get out of this infernal prisoner of war camp. As a British officer, it is my duty to escape. You must promise to bring me another spoon tomorrow night, demanded Grandpa. A soup spoon? This is mighty task, man. I need a serving spoon. I promise, sir, Jack muttered. Squadron leader, the only thing that keeps me going in here is the thought of getting back in my Spitfire. At the moment, Miss Swan's suspicions must have got better of her, and she bounded out of the building at speed. The lady tottered across the garden in her high-heeled boots, her cape flapping in the wind. Two of our sinister helpers were at her side, Nurse Rose and Nurse Blossom. They were both so big and brawny, they looked more like matrons, security guards than anything else. Trailing behind were Mom and Dad, huffing and puffing to keep up. On guardian duty early, called matron, our words were riddled with distraught. Yes, that's right. Just tending to these flower beds, Commandant, shouted Grandpa. Commandant, repeated Miss Swan. The silly old fool thinks he is in a prisoner of war camp. Matron laughed uproariously. Ha ha ha. The two nurses were a bit slow on the uptake, but after a moment joined in with the laughter. Ha ha ha. As Mom and Dad reached the flower bed, Miss Swan held court for a moment. Oh, you have a good sense of humor to work here at Twilight Towers. You certainly do, matron, replied Nurse Rose in her gruffy voice. So many of my old folk have gone gaga, but Grandpa here is the most gaga of them all. How dare you, said the boy. Don't be rude to the nice matron, said Mom. Look at him, exclaimed Matron. The man is Bonkers. No, Commandant, my name is not Bonkers. It is Bunting, corrected Grandpa. I think there is a flight Lieutenant Bonkers was 501 or 501 Squadron over in Gloucester. Oh dear, murmured Matron. Well, it is getting rather chilly out here, don't you think? Yes, Matron, said Dad, who, being so skinny, was shivering slightly with the cold. Nurses, would you be kind enough to help poor Mr. Bunting inside? Ordered Mrs. Swan. That's Wing Commander Bunting, protested Grandpa. Yes, of course it is, replied Miss Swan sarcastically. Together, Nurse Rose and Nurse Blossom picked up the old man by his ankles, dangling him upside down as they marched back into the building. Let go of him, shouted Dad. Do they have to carry him like that? Pleaded Dad. It's good for his bad back, replied Matron cheerily. Jack couldn't take it any more and launched himself at one of the nurse's backs. In an instant, she swatted him away as if he was a fly. Jack, exclaimed Mom as she pulled him back by his arm. I won't talk, you know, Commandant, shouted the old man as he was carried off. I would rather die than betray king and country. Commandant, indeed. Ho, ho. That does make me giggle. Ha, 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 said Matron, before looking at her watch. Well, we should all be getting back inside to enjoy the party. There's still 2 whole minutes of visiting time left. Matron urged Mom and Dad ahead. Please, after you, Barbara and Barry. But then Miss Swan loitered for a moment to have a private word with Jack. I know you are up to something, you nasty little child, he hissed. I'll be watching you. A shiver ran down the boy's spine.